Hello, everyone. Good evening here from India. For those of you who don't know me, I am Afi. I work here at ProApp as the community manager, and today we have got something really excited lined up because Jonah is not someone who has been collaborating with us for the first time, and definitely not the last time. We had a great session in the month of January on delivering value through practical UX, and here he is to speak about it again. Uh, we covered things like discovering user goals, pain points, behaviors, and understanding how the user behaves. So he is here to take over it again. And for those of you who don't know him, Jonah is a user experience designer focused on research, product, and interaction design. And with over 5 years of agency as well as in-house experience, he's energized by solving problems and mentoring, collaborating with multi-disciplinary teams. So, I mean, he's a design leader. Strong advocacy for the end user is something that drives him. And he's also currently a researcher in construction and supply chain software. He's so passionate about the UX methods and strategy, and that was something that I could figure out from the first session. So, and here he is for you to learn so many things about user experience and practical UX. So, Jonah, I guess that's enough of me, and over to you.
Awesome. Hey, folks. Really, thanks, Afi, for the welcome. I feel like blushing in some ways because, yeah, I'm just a designer and I just love what I do. And so, yeah, like this session, we're hopefully going to make you appreciate UX more and hopefully find it practical and useful going forward. So let's get started, folks. I'd love to, I can see that there's a few people already in the chat. I did this last time, but I would love it if you do have the chat, just put in the bottom where you're from. I would love to see where in the world. I can see we've already got Macedonia, which is awesome. But where else are people from? Chennai in India. Lovely to meet you, Shapira. Any other sort of locations? I'm currently in Belfast in Northern Ireland. And so, yeah, we've got Nigeria, Peru, and Texas, Mumbai. Awesome. What I really love about the modern age is the fact that we can all meet together in one place. And this is really awesome. Nice to meet you, Lokesh, from India as well. So let's get stuck in. I've got a few slides for us to talk through, and I'd love to share this with you to the global audience. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and we'll go from there. Let's get started. So I can see your chat just to the right of my screen. So if you've got any questions throughout, I'll do my best to respond. Though there is questions towards the end that we can do a little bit more of in-depth talking. Right, intro out the way. Let's roll up our sleeves and look at the topic of practical UX, how we can deliver value the right way. And the best intro that I can give to this is the fact that you are part of this journey and that you are a user experience professional or a UXer, and whether you work in marketing, in development, whether you're just trying to get started in the world of UX, whether you've got design or research experience, everyone collectively has a responsibility to be involved, to put the user first, to have user-centered mindset when we come to products, solutions, and services that we work on. And we all work in tech. We all are in some way using technology, and so we all have a responsibility here. So just a little bit about me, just to expand on. I've been doing mentoring, and whether that's in the classroom or part of a community like this or one-to-one. And I'm really passionate about just helping people understand and helping them get started. And so I've been also working, I guess my main job, getting paid to work on software for like big startups that are growing, or agencies, and actually doing more consultancy stuff. And currently I work at Fortius as a UX researcher. And a lot of that is just about operations and trying to equip my team so that they can make good decisions based off user research. So that's what keeps me busy. And I would love to then do one sort of shameless plug, which is the UX Energy newsletter. And I created this just off the back of lockdown that was coming to an end. I know a lot of people that got burnt out. A lot of people wanted to change careers. A lot of people really got hit hard by COVID. And so this platform, I called it UX Energy, to energize and to empower the people getting started. And so it's resources. It's a newsletter bi-weekly that's to help and encourage you. It is completely free. So it's just get.ux.energy and you can get signed up today. And I would love to see you on there. And yeah, just another sort of things. I love helping people. I love hearing people's stories. And so I've just got some like great sort of quotes that I hold dearly of just people who have been helped by not just me, because that's egotistical, but like I like helping people and sharing knowledge so that they can grow and learn for themselves. And so hopefully we can learn something. So we already know where you are, but maybe you fit into one of these categories as a student, as a designer, and you might find that you're on this list. And so that I want this course to be as practical as possible. We really get in depth at some points. But I'd love to kind of get as much sort of input as I can get, so that you can learn and you can grow. So you're saying that you can't hear any audio. I'm not sure whether we could maybe message that person, Afif, and maybe help them out. But hopefully we can kind of get sorted. And just to say as well, like if you're here watching online, if you're here and you've maybe not been able to kind of attend today's session, there will be emails given out at the end of this session, or you can just message me in case you miss anything. Right, okay, that's the sort of official intro out the way. Let's get into then the meat of what we're trying to talk about, the real in-depth stuff. And so last time we covered how you're not the user and how we understood about all of the different ways in which we can understand the user, so we, I guess, can earn the right to make decisions for them, so that we can actually not just use our own bias. And so today we're going to be covering the whole idea of like prioritization. How do we make the right decisions? How do we know what's right to build? How do we know what's wrong to build, etc.? And so we'll just expand on some of these points. We're going to really have a deep dive into triangulation and what does that mean, or what's synthesis, what's the highway priorities. We'll cover all of those, and we're also going to then have a practical session where we can actually work together on a journey map. So just to recap, then last sessions we talked about the whole idea that you're not the user, and if you remember, you can watch the YouTubes later, but we talked about the ivory tower, right, which is this huge massive, it's like the tallest building in the world. And it's ivory tower, and it's a helpful illustration for us to understand that we are not the user, and that for us working in tech, in our offices, in our own communities, we are actually really quite high up compared to the rest of the world. Because there's a study done by the OECD that talked to, I think, quite like a couple of thousand adults to test their competency skills in terms of technology. And the sort of huge statement here is that 95% of people cannot do sort of middle sort of advanced text stuff with emails and exporting them, and that was just a quick test that they did. And like what's really interesting is we we looked at how the different levels of people couldn't even turn on a computer, don't have access to the internet, and then we identified that we are at the top of like people who are competent with IT, and we're like really high up, and we need to understand that as we and in the tech world need to understand that we're in a bubble, and we need to get out of the bubble. We need to get out of our building. And we talked about how we're the 5% elite, how often we're so biased. We have so much inside knowledge in terms of our own business, our own sort of technology that we have. We've got more, maybe we actually own like advanced technology, like fancy iPhones rather than what maybe the general public have. And so yeah, like there was a great quote that we covered, which is just actually understanding how unlike our users we actually are. Okay, and so the whole get out of the building topic was what we covered, and we had this mindset of stepping out of our own bias, our own sort of elite mindset, and actually talking to users. And the way we did that was through discovery. And there were 3 areas that we looked at when we were doing discovery. which is around goals, context, and behavior to like really understand and get in the minds of our users. Thanks, Afif, for sharing the link. So we have then the research matrix that we covered, and feel free to kind of catch up on all this, but we covered all of these different ways of getting all this information from our users. And I guess the simple conclusion that we had to last session was just basically guessing user needs is expensive. And what I'm trying to encourage everyone to think about is, by doing research, we can be more confident in our design decisions. And so often people just jump straight into Figma. They just want to just get creative. They want to be innovative, but they actually leave their users behind because they stay in their 5% bubble and they're not actually validating their product decisions with the actual intended users. Okay, so what happens if you've done some of that? What happens if you've talked to some users? You've done a survey, you've done competitive analysis, or you've done some of these discovery items. What next? Well, that's what we're going to cover in today's session, when we're talking about prioritization and how we take all of this data, all of these, comments and opinions and bits of data that we capture from our users. How do we actually make sense of it all? And so I hope you guys are ready to buckle up. Drink break. Okay, so buckle up because we're gonna have a deep dive here. So triangulation, that's our first starting point here, and it's basically a helpful way for us to think about. And I've got the Sherlock Holmes character there who's perfect at deduction and trying to bring things together to solve crimes. And it's exactly a crime that we need to talk about right now, so that we can understand how data can be really important. So guy on the screen is a guy called Joe O'Reilly, and he was an infamous killer, and he currently is locked up. So what's his story? Well, he came home from work one day. He goes in and he brutally murders his wife, like brutally, and it's shocking and it was horrible. He then goes back to work and he has an alibi, and there was no car tracks on the driveway. There was no blood on him. And so what happened? Well, he didn't get caught. They couldn't prove that he did it. And this was like a crime investigation that went on for ages, and there was big court cases. The only thing that got him caught was the fact that although he had no traces of the blood, no sort of tracks or mud on his shoes or anything to pin him to the crime, and he had the alibi as well, the only thing that caught him was his mobile phone. And let's explain how that happened. So in the introduction to Joe O'Reilly and his famous court case that got him imprisoned, where he's behind bars now, was actually to do with a satellite. It's not a satellite. A telephone signal tower. Right now, when you think about this area, if you think about your house and how far away that is from work, let's say, well, and if we were to like maybe draw it out, let's say that his house is here. It's like there's actually like not a lot of ways to kind of prove that he is there, because it's actually a huge wide area. And let's say that his work is up here, right? There's no way that they can catch him based on that. But what about when you then bring in multiple other data points? Well, this is helpful because on the red side, we can actually see that he's in this area. We can actually see, okay, from looking at another signal tower, we can actually pinpoint his mobile location at this point. And it's through looking at then the third item here. Oh no, I've got my placement wrong, guys. I'm so sorry. That's embarrassing. Let's just say that his house is here, right? Ignore that, right? What I'm trying to communicate here, that was like such poor delivery. I'm sorry. I'm hanging my head in shame because I'm trying to do this here from my iPad. It's the first time I've done that. Okay, so let's imagine that his house is here. Then through data, what he's able to do is look at multiple data points to actually pinpoint and identify where he was at the time of the crime. And that is super, super helpful. And so the learning that I'm trying to give here, minus the scribbles on the paper, is the fact that the learning here is that through looking at multiple data sources, we can identify the pattern. We can identify the truth. So, Jonah, why are you talking about this? Why are you drawing on the screen? Why are you showing these sort of, just like a networking sort of discussion here? We're talking about, 4G phone signal. Not at all. It's only to communicate here is when you combine multiple data sources, you can then identify patterns. So in the UX world, what about if you work on an e-commerce project, right? And so let's say that your company sells shoes and you're selling shoes online and you're looking at the analytics and it says, oh no, the analytics says that there's a really low conversion rate around Black Friday when we're supposed to be getting a lot of sales. What's happening? Well, just one data source doesn't actually tell you really why that's happening. And so what's really helpful is if you can then do usability testing, for example, you go speak to some users, you try and understand that actually they're complaining about a number of issues here. They're complaining that, the website's slow, and they're complaining that, they don't understand sort of pounds and dollars and different currency issues, for example. But then maybe doing surveys also highlights that there's other things that are going wrong. And likewise, you could go look at other websites and look at how they're doing it. You can see here that there's now multiple data points here that share, that are common. And you can be confident when you have multiple data sources all coming together that you can then identify patterns. And those patterns help you be a better designer because you know that the survey and usability testing is doing the same things. Now, we could have changed the background color of the website, but that wouldn't necessarily solve it. And the way that we do good research is by bringing those all together and looking at this. And so we can just have then higher confidence. And that's what all I'm trying to kind of introduce here. So you're probably thinking, this is hurting my head. I don't quite understand what we're talking about here. And I appreciate that if you missed the last session, you probably don't know what data we have. So let me zoom out a little bit and give you an example of how we can put this into practice, how we can actually go and build up a prioritization list of all of the things that our users are saying, all the things that the surveys and the analytics are telling us. How do we go about doing that? Well, one of the best ways to do this is through thematic analysis. This is not a fun word to say, and it's a bit of a mouthful. There's another term that we can also use, which is affinity mapping. Well, what does this translate? Well, what it is it's a method of understanding the data that you have. So imagine that you have 10 people that you've spoken to, and they're all telling you different things. It's really quite hard work to try and bring in all of their comments together. Go and go onto the App Store and go and look at feedback that everyone's giving on that app. Look at all the comments, look at all of the ratings that they're giving. How do you actually know what they're all saying without reading every single one? It's messy. And so what you have to do is you have to start grouping them together. And so let's think about this then. So you're breaking them down into kind of common topics. I call this tag and bag, and we can explore that later. But we're simply just grouping these bits of information into buckets, into groups of information. And then we're looking at then maybe the larger themes that, okay, a lot of people are talking about this feature, or a lot of people are complaining about this. And we're going to learn later on that a democratic mindset can be super helpful when we're bringing this together. So this is the problem sometimes with what I understand as the world of UX, is that there's a lot of really smart people that are have been doing this for years, and that there's a sort of an industry recognition that they know what they're doing. And, these are coming from a scientific background, human computer interactions, psychology background. And it can be quite hard for people like you and me to understand. And so, we've got here a definition here. It still doesn't make sense in my head. So let's simplify this even more. Let's say that we've got a conversation and we've got multiple data points. And let's think that we're on a news app, right? So over in the UK, we use the BBC. The BBC is our standard one. But if you're in America, you've got CNN, Fox News, and I'm sure you've got yours in your local country. So imagine that we're looking at a news app. And we've got loads of data here, right? There's loads of things here. So people are saying, oh, I don't like this pop-up. And, I start my day by checking the news and Twitter. Why do I have to pay for this? 80% of the, these are messy, right? It's cluttered. It's all the same color. There's no way that you can kind of really look at this and understand it just by looking at the raw, messy data. And so what the method is for thematic analysis is you break it down and put it into groups. And if you've read some of these, you might recognize that there's already groups starting to appear. So let's say that we change the color and we actually start grouping them together. We'll actually see that there's themes starting to appear. So we can think as context. Well, the context, helps us understand statistics, like 17% of the users don't sign up and pay for the premium version, or 80% of users are on an iPhone. That helps us understand the context. It doesn't understand why they're abandoning and why they're not paying, but also look at the goals. So these are comments that we've had from people we've interviewed or people from the surveys that are saying, they're sharing their sort of goals for sharing about how they do their day, about how they don't like ads. So that helps us understand their mind, but then also the pain points. The pain points are the juicy bits, because we can actually start to see that they don't like pop-ups, and there's alerts that come in. They don't like having to pay for stuff. People complain that the download is really big. So there's a range of different pain points. But the beautiful thing about a thematic analysis is then you can start to combine these multiple data sources together to identify patterns. So let's have a look at this one. So 70% of users abandoned the subscribe to newsletter flow, right? And this is like really helpful, because we can be like, wow, okay, here is a big problem that's hurting the business, but also maybe frustrating our users. So let's also understand, well, there's a comment here saying, I like to pay for my news content rather than get lots of ads. And so we can see that we could be potentially hurting our users, or, we're understanding the mental model of our users is that they'd rather just pay for good quality content without all these ads and pop-ups. But let's keep looking. When we are able to kind of group together, we can see, like, I dislike when this pop-up keeps appearing, this alert gets in the way. So we could actually, based on the context, the goals, the pain points of these different data sources together, we can actually come up with a pattern, with a theme that we can then bring together and actually say, this is a big priority. This is hurting our users. We're sending them too many pop-ups. We need to make a simpler conversion flow so that they can sign up, get their news, and we can increase user retention, for example. So this is just a fake product. Like, this is just data that I just made up, but I wanted to communicate like how critical this is. Like when you like go back a couple of slides, like you don't understand any of that just by looking at all the raw data. And so our job as designers, as researchers, as product people, is that we need to use these methods. You can put them on sticky notes, or you can use other tools to get through. So let's see if we can skip forwards here and communicate how clear and visual it is, right? And so I kind of had to show that and demonstrate that hopefully the value from this workshop and through mentoring and the other programs that we're running is that we want to make this practical and easy. And I'm a visual learner. And so hopefully that helped. So what are some tips then for when we do this for ourselves, when we've got our own data? Well, when we're creating sticky notes, and I actually have some right here that are on my wall, only write one insight per sticky note. Don't write paragraphs and paragraphs. Try to avoid opinions, right? You might really dislike a part of your products, or you might really have a bit of your own bias. Get it out. You need to back it up. You need to actually make it defensible, right? What's really helpful is that you're not doing this alone. And what I really recommend is, if you are doing these sort of brainstorming sessions, these workshop sessions, get your whole team in here, get your sales lead on there, get your head of tech, get your designers in there, get your business people, because then you can all come together, whether you're shy or extrovert, whether you're junior or senior. This is actually a great way, because everyone can write down the sticky notes, everyone can put them on the wall, and you can start grouping and collating. It's awesome. Now, the problem with this is that it's all physical, it's all in person. And so with the world of it being remote, this can be quite difficult. And so just one quick point I want to say is, when you're writing sticky notes, don't just say user gets lost or, this is bad. Try and actually explain really succinctly, like give it context, right? Because if you come back to this project in 6 months, you're not going to know what that sticky note means. So write clear notes. But let's go back to that topic of then, how do we do this sort of prioritization workshops when we're a remote team. I live and work in Northern Ireland, and I'm the only person in this house who works in this house, right? I work remotely, but I have a team all over Europe. So how do I work with them? Well, I can't fly over to their house and bring a bunch of sticky notes and do a workshop with them. We need to do it online. And so the next slide just helpfully explains some of the tools that you can use to actually do more with your data. So I've included a few links here, and we'll explore some of them in a bit more detail. But what's really good is that you have online collaboration. And this is really helpful because all your team can come in, you can put in your insights, you can put in the things that you've learned about your users, you can highlight, you can tag, and then share this with your team. You know, this wall is very hard to share with my team unless I take photos, which aren't that great. So you've got tools that are really good for thematic analysis, Condensed Dovetail, Enjoy HQ. You can put in all your data, you can analyze it and tag it like you've got here. And then Miro, Mural, and Figma are also other tools that are really good for sticky notes and workshopping. Okay, are there any other questions that we want to cover at this point? I'm just aware of time and there's loads more to cover. Any other questions? Feel free to ask them in the comments or in the Q&A. But what I want to try and communicate to you guys is the importance of being able to summarize through all the messy data into insights that are actionable for your team. And it's like, well, Jonah, do we really need to do this? You know, do we really need to talk to our users? Do we really need to define? Well, tell me more about why people will use your product. We need to do this, right? We need to go through these steps in order that we can actually take our research and put it into practice, put it into design. And you might be more creative. You might just enjoy doing designs. But I'll tell you this, you will be a better designer. You will be more effective in Figma. You'll save more time. You'll be more efficient. You'll build better products when you infuse it with the research that you're getting. So that's just a really important point. Let's summarize before we move into the next section. Okay, so you work at a company or you're a student. What data sources do you have? And if you don't have any, go get some, right? So if you are a student, think about maybe your forums or like the reviews that your course gets, or think about maybe feedback that you might find on Reddit or an app store, or go look on Google Maps and see the reviews. Let's maybe take some of that data that we can have from Google Maps. So we've got Ahmed a question here. So let me just take a break here. So how can we find a unique problem in various sectors as a UX designer? This is a really good question, Ahmed. Thank you so much for asking that. So a unique problem is often we're trying to like come up with something cool to design, right? We want to go fix something. We want to kind of get creative, and we want to go and build the next Uber, right? But Uber is based on a problem. Airbnb, Amazon, these are all based on problems, not necessarily that you find, but it's problems that people out there find. And so, Ahmed, what I'd really recommend that you do is that you go and speak to users and ask them, what's frustrating about this bus stop when you're waiting? What's frustrating about this website when you're trying to register for a mortgage application? What's frustrating, or what's your pain points when it comes to hiring a scooter or a car, or hiring, you know, we need to go and find a painter and decorator for our house. What are some of the pain points that you have? And it's just asking them questions, Ahmed. It's sending them a survey. It's sending them usability studies that you can go and observe and see what are their frustrations, what are their pain points. And it's just about watching and learning and observing. And hopefully the last video that Afif shared explores all of those methods that we can go about for doing that. And hopefully, Lokesh, that answers your question. And I guess to summarize the last video in one sentence is, The best way to understand the user's pain points is to observe them using the service or the product or the website or whatever. And that's through usability testing, because you can test your prototype in Figma, you can test your designs, you can get a pen and paper and you can actually draw out a very rough sketch and do a guerrilla test with someone in Starbucks and just ask them to kind of give you feedback. And so, Rian, thank you so much for your question as well. So I want to know how to reach our right target audience for user research survey. How might we know that this is our target user? And that's a really good question. I guess it depends on your product. And I think what's really good is that you need to almost do like a screener, right? And it depends on what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve. But Ryan, like a screener is a really good way because you can get people to kind of fill in sort of certain information about their age, about their socioeconomic background, whether they, if we go back to the shoe shop, if they don't like wearing trainers, then we maybe won't send them a research survey on trainers, right? They only want sort of smart dress shoes, for example. And so a screen is quite helpful because it gets people out of the way so that you can get the right amount of people. But if you don't know who your audience is, well, just go chat to 100 people and then you can break down, from there, being like, okay, well, there's some people over here that are in this category. These are students, and you can do it by age. But it really depends on the problem you're trying to solve or, the research you're trying to do. Feel free to kind of message me later after this. So Abu, you asked a good question. In India, most companies first doing visual design and then creating a wireframe. No research is done. Very sad to see. Yeah, so although this isn't a question, this is so true. And what I would just say is that that's not UX. UX is putting the user first, right? If you imagine the word U and X, right? That is putting the user first and then the experience, right? When a company doesn't talk to a user, it's just X. There's no user in it. There's no interface. There's no experience. It's just poor. And ultimately, companies that prioritize a good user experience will get a competitive advantage. They will make their customers happier. They will sell more. They will do more. And there's so much research to back that up. So yeah, great point. So are there any other sort of questions here? Because I actually have like an answer here to your previous question. Abu here is like, who are the key people to workshop with? And so when you're trying to bring in people, try and think about people in your own team who can contribute to this, or your client, or other people. I've done a research project where I actually had politicians coming in. I had a group of school kids, I had residents, and I also had people who were doing the service, people who were, this was like a waste management, for trash and for bins. So I actually spoke to loads of people, all the key stakeholders. And then what themes can you find when talking to people? Get your pain points, goals, context, and behavior. And these are just the starting points for you creating your themes in your groups. Okay, I appreciate that this was quite a heavy session. So we can roll back a little bit and we can talk about definition. Are we all good to move on? Yeah? Okay, so hopefully this isn't exploding your mind too much, but I'm trying to show you that when you really get into UX, you actually can really get into some deep analysis here. And I'll just tell you a story before we go further. I have a student that I mentor, and she kind of got a bit frustrated. She didn't want to do the research. So what she did was she actually went ahead. It was for like a pet product. So, people who have pets, they can kind of monitor and log their health. And it was an app to do that, right? She just went off and designed it. And I said, that's good. These drawings are good. These sketches are good. And I said, how confident are you that this is the right solution, that people will want to use this? And she was like, I'm not quite sure. And I said, well, how about you finish your research? How about you conduct those interviews and you actually send out that survey? When you do the analysis, tell me what you learned. And so she did an empathy map, she did how might we statements, and she combined all of her research together. And she learned there were 10 things that she was not doing. And so what was a really good lesson for her was to actually compare the original designs of her brain and what she thought was a good idea, and actually then compared that with what her users wanted and what actual other pet owners wanted. And they were a very different product. What do you think is going to sell more? Just a question. Let's zoom in then. So how do we communicate these patterns that we find from research? If we've gone and spoken to users, we've identified key themes from our research, well, we then communicate that out to our business, because no one's going to want to read sticky notes. And so there's just a table that I've put together here of, I guess, maps or visual reports that help communicate our users. And what I'm just going to say is, in this part of this workshop, all of this is to kind of give you a teaser or a taster for a bigger project that we have coming up. So if you're like, I have no idea what a service blueprint is, Jonah, like it's just going over my head, that's okay. Wait till the end and I'll explain how we can help with that. But when you have data, right? And I'm just trying to explain the journey here of when we have data, when we talk to users, what do we do with it? Well, I'm going to show you maybe 3 different ways that we can then communicate this out to our teams, that we can actually create almost like a checklist of our design must do this, our users need this, so we need to give them this, and we'll have a go with that. So I'm gonna just talk you through what a journey map is, what an empathy map is, and also a how might we statement. So a journey map is highlighting multiple steps that a user is going on their journey to complete a goal. So if you're buying shoes, you have a journey, right? You're going to Google, you're going to look, you're going to type in Nike Air Force One trainers, size 10. You're going to then go onto a website, you're going to view the product, you're going to maybe add it to basket, you're going to maybe buy, and then you're going to get a delivery, and then you might need to give it a review. That's the journey. And so a journey map is a really good way to kind of visualize that all out and actually explain, how's the experience going? Like, are they happy at this point? Are they sad? And so we'll build one together at the end of this, right? Then we have another thing, which is summarizing a user. And so we talked about one of the previous questions that we had. I think maybe it was from you, Abu. I'm not sure. One of the questions that we had was, how do we know who the target audience is? A really helpful way to summarize and to group users into categories is empathy maps, because these can help us create like personas as well. But like we can create like unique ways of summarizing all the points that the user is saying in our research. And then how might we statements are kind of like a shopping list. We're going to need to build this. We're going to need to solve this. And it helps stir creativity. So if you want to get a little bit more of a deep dive, let's go have a look. So journey maps, what are they good for? What is a journey map? And like, you can maybe see that there's like one that I created earlier here. They're really long, really big, but they communicate the journey that it's for a user to kind of go. So what's good for a journey map? And you and us, sorry, me and us, we're gonna go and create one together at the end of this. But they're really good for showing empathy, right? They really help people understand, oh man, they're really frustrated at this point. It's really good at like zooming out and looking at your whole service, whether that's getting a bus, selling phones, secondhand phones, or whether that's you creating a gardening service so that you can help people, book sessions to go and, get their lawn cut, or whatever solution we want to have. We can zoom out and create a big picture here from start to finish. And I guess it breaks down silos. It helps communicate all the different parts that are there. It helps us focus on the problems, and it also highlights improvements that we can make. There's a really cool book that I'm going to talk about maybe a bit later. But if you would like to get the book, Mapping Experiences, this is like how to be like a super wizard at creating user journey maps, experience maps, and we'll go and create one later. So that's one thing that we can use to share with our team and say, well, here's how our users are feeling at each stage of the journey. What else can we do? Well, let's think back to that news app. We had loads of information, didn't we, about downloads, about iOS users. We had loads of things around, understanding their pain points, and we kind of understood a bit of their daily journey. What's really good about empathy maps is that they help us take a user and it makes us create this profile in our minds that helps us direct us for the decisions that we make. So we call that a true north. And these are really simple diagrams that help us communicate all of our research into one design. So what's an empathy map? Let me draw it out. So we look at what this individual says, right? So when we have our news app, we might have multiple different sort of groups that we might identify who are saying this. They're like, hey, I'm really frustrated with pop-ups, and they might be having those sort of conversations and sharing that sort of stuff with family. Well, what's this person doing? Well, they get on a bus and they go to work and they read news. They read Twitter when they wake up. Those are all the tasks that they're doing. And we can just type them in, right? We can add sticky notes, we can draw them. What are they thinking? Like, what's their thought process? And also then how are they feeling? This is a really helpful summary of this person. And we can then also highlight then the goals if we understand them. And also, most importantly, the pain points. This is an empathy map. This is a really helpful way of understanding I guess, a representative of our user research. And we'll give this guy a name. He's Ada. He's 28, and we're calling him the professional user because he's going to work and he's reading the news, right, on his way to work, right? But we might find that there's other people, maybe more like retired people, who maybe like to not get the app. They might want to read it on their iPad or whatever. So we create different groups depending on the research. That's an empathy map, and they're really awesome. And then finally, we have then the how might we statements. And our how might we statements are really good at communicating what a user needs and what the problem is. So they're really good because they help with teamwork. They help people work together. And it also shapes the thinking into being more creative. We're not just giving solutions. We're not saying, how might we build an app that does this? It's not about that. We're talking about the outcome, right? So we're talking about the desired outcome. And in our case, if we run this news app, we might have this outcome, which is like, hey, I really need to make more money by more people subscribing to the premium mode of our app. So that's the desired outcome. And then the problem is anything that we learned from our users. So let's have a few examples, right? And I'll type it out. So how might we successfully onboard users without using pop-ups and frustrating them? Because that's the pain point. That's the problem that we understood, but we want to get people on our app. So how might we do this? And what's really good about these is it launches us to be creative, and it almost gives us this sort of focus point based on the outcome and the problem married together in a single sentence that helps us work together as a team. Let's have a few more. So how might we make the onboarding process quick and intuitive, right? Some people might be standing in a queue and they don't want to download a 300 megabyte app. That's big, right? So what are some of the problem solvings that we can do there? And just one other example is, how might we make downloading the app quicker and lighter? And, those are sort of other sort of ways in which we could frame the thinking and get the team involved. Wow. Okay. So that is like 3 methods that we can use. There's loads more. We don't have time today to explore them all. But I guess the question is, are you ready to do some UX? Are you ready to take the user's comments and to put them into practice for your team so that you can communicate that? Well, I hope you are, because that's what the workshop's about. And just a really cool quote from Jamie Levy. She says, she uses customer journey maps to help us focus on the customer. And it's a great tool to get consensus with her team on how to best serve the customers at each touch point. So what I'm going to suggest is that we have a bit of a practical session and we zoom back a little bit and maybe go and build one. And so, Mohammed, you've had a good question here. What's the difference between a customer journey map and a user journey map? They're the same thing, right? So some people like to call it users, but not everyone is a customer, right? If you're getting a bus, okay, you're a customer, but like you don't have to be a customer. You might not be buying anything, So, it could just be a tool that you're using in your organization to go and book holidays, right? So those aren't customers. That's your own team who need time off work. And so we might call that a user. So customer, user, same thing. But it's a good point. Are we ready to go and build one? Are we ready to get our hands dirty and talk about how we can go and create one? What I'm just going to say is I'll quit the screen sharing here. And what we'll do is, I don't want to give too much away. I'm going to reshare, and we're going to just spend the rest of the time together looking at how we can build a journey map and all the different parts of a journey map, because I haven't really zoomed into what one is. So here's a question. Are you ready? Are you ready to go and do this? Feel free to ask questions. And I know I feel I did a complete spoiler, my bad. Let's see if we can zoom in. So I'm using Miro. Miro is a free tool. And what's really cool is at the end of the session, I'm going to give you all access to this so that you can go and create your own copies of this. So let's go. And, this is, like a professional level. I've done very similar ones for other organizations, and I've done well for it. So here's the journey map. You need to give it a title. So let's use the example that we had for the news site, right? So we could call this like news onboarding journey. Okay, give it the time, give it a bit of, your team, who's involved. But this is the map. And you're like, okay, what about it? Well, let's see if we can explore it. We need to then introduce the persona type, and I'll zoom in here. So the persona type we talked about was a guy called Asa, and he's the professional, because this is about his journey and his process for getting onboarded on the app. Okay, so, and this is just made up, but hopefully it makes sense to everyone. So Asa, the professional, and we could create quite a few of these. And Rehan, you want to know whether it's necessary to do all affinity mapping, personas, and empathy mapping in the same project? If yes, then what different results is the three process providing us? Let me come to that just at the end of this, if that's okay, Rehan, because personas and empathy mapping are really similar. And we probably don't have time today to kind of cover the big differences, but I'll come to that after, if that's okay. So we've got our news onboarding journey, right? And we've introduced the character here, Asa, right? And we want to try and understand, okay, well, what are the different steps that we have? We want to maybe introduce some guiding principles here. A guiding principle is just something for us to kind of bear in mind, that we want light and easy. We might want to put our business outcomes here. So we want to kind of like light and easy onboarding. And our target is to maybe like increase downloads and increase people buying, right? Increase sales. And so like that's kind of like our goals and what we want to kind of bear in mind. So what else do we have on our bucket list here? So we have stages. So a stage then is like a key step along the way. And there's nothing really too specific about what we put in here as each stage. But let's say for this journey here, we maybe have quite a few. And so I'll just build them out. We've maybe got 4 stages here that we can communicate. Now, from our research, we should know that this professional guy, Asa, or who he represents, that they have a common way that they do this. So they kind of start their day. So it's like, day starts, right? And then from here, we then talk about then the commute. We then could maybe talk about his journey of, I guess, looking for a news app. And so we could talk about his commute, but also we could then talk about then his like, I guess, awareness of the product, awareness of that. He might see an advert for this or whatever. Then there's like the download, and there's the sort of the sign up stage. And there's, I guess, like the final step, which is, I guess, success, right? Yay, Asa is onboarded, he's happy. And he kind of has made a decision whether he wants to buy the premium product or not. Okay, so that's an example, folks, of all the key stages in a journey. Now, whether that's you getting a bus, or whether you're ordering an appointment, ordering a pizza, or anything like that, there's steps there that all of your users need to take. And so it's just helpful to spend a bit of time trying to break that down. Okay, so let's label this. We'll call this stages. And stages are the kind of the top things that you're doing here at this stage. And so Asa, this individual, he's following this journey for him to go and subscribe to the news app. Does this make sense so far? So that's our first stage. And then the next thing that we need to try and do is think about doing. What is Asa doing at each point? Now, from our research that we had just earlier, we have then the doing column. What he's doing? Well, he's maybe checking Twitter. He's waking early and getting ready for commute. We hear that he's following and he's doing these steps. You can see what else can we put in? Well, ASA then might have certain feelings. And so what's really important in a journey map or like this experience map is that we communicate that there's the good and the bad. And each stage might have a different experience for this individual. So we have two sort of like areas of like good and bad. So we'll put the good as kind of like a nice green, and I'll put a nice yellow, and I'll put this one as a red to kind of highlight this is not good. And so from our research, we should know what his sort of awareness of the product is, right? We know that he sees an ad, or he sees like a pop-up. Now, we learned that the pop-ups were negative, right? And so what we can do here is that we can maybe map out that he maybe starts his day, he's in a happy mood, but then pain point, right? He sees a pop-up and he interacts with that. The download, he complains because the download is also heavy and it's not easy. And then, you know, the sign up, well, he said, you know, he likes good quality content if it's a good onboarding flow. That's good. And then the decision, hopefully, you know, if we've researched this, hopefully we know that he's, that he's like super, super happy. And so we could just put him like, yeah, like super happy. He's gone and signed up and he's getting great value from our product. And so when we're looking at this and we're putting in our research and we're understanding all the feelings, well, we can actually highlight that, oh gosh, this is a really bad area here. Like he is not happy and we need to go in and fix this as soon as possible, because that's a pain point and that's a pain point as well that we also need to zoom in on and fix. So another thing that we can do under the feelings is we could maybe create pain points as a separate column or a row that allows us to communicate exact quotes that he's having. So a pain point is him saying, and we can add in direct quotes. We can say like, it's like the app size is too big. It's too big. Or, you know, over here, we could say, I really dislike all the pop-ups, angry face, right? Doesn't like that. And so folks, what I'm trying to communicate here is that all we're doing is we're taking our research and we're putting it into the behavior, the pain points, and we can understand all of this here. So hopefully that makes sense so far. And just one further point that we can add in for this journey is then my favorite part, which is then thinking about solutions, right? It's these how might we statements. It's these ideas that we might have to improve this, right? So how do we get rid of pop-ups, or how do we make the app size be smaller? Well, we could investigate having smaller download sizes, right? And there we go. It's about opportunities that helps us achieve our business goals. And what I'm trying to say here, folks, is that the journey map, even though we've not filled it in properly because we don't have it's a fake project, but all the opportunities here, all of the solutions that we can do are mapped directly to the emotion and the pain points that the user's having. And so when we can go and create these elaborate journey maps, then we're in a really strong position to then focus our team to be like, let's not redesign it. Let's not, make the advertising better. Let's see if we can improve this pain point so that we can turn this sad face and we can turn it into a happy face, right? And then that way we can increase conversions, because, we might say that, we want to make more sales, so we're going to go make it look sexy. Well, if we hadn't done research, we wouldn't have known that it's actually the download stage that is actually the problem. Who'd have thought? This is where we should focus our efforts, because we're letting the users drive, the solutions, right? We're letting the user, and we have confidence that I know that if we make the app smaller, or we remove the pop-ups and make it have a smoother onboarding experience, that's going to be great. Okay, so do we have any questions on this one? Any kind of questions at all? I'm just aware of time here, Afif, so nudge me if we're going over here. But we're done. This is a journey map that we can now reuse for everyone else. So Gracia, thanks for your comment. My users did not have any awareness about current apps that would allow them to achieve their goals. How could I build the journey app in this case? Well, the thing is, they might not be looking for apps, right? And that's maybe where, Gracia, you're thinking, I need to make an app. But actually, you need to actually understand what they want. If they're not looking for apps, then they might be looking for something else. They might be looking to solve their problem another way. Let's go back to this question then. How do we bring value to users and how do we make sure we're building the right things? Well, there's a simple rule set that we need to have here. By doing this, we need to identify the core route that the users take, right? Which is looking at all of the doing tasks. We need to actually understand, okay, what are those steps? But then also then, what are the sort of the low efforts and the high value items? Like if we go and make the app size smaller, is that high value? Is that going to affect everyone? That's a win because everyone will benefit from that. But let me talk about then what I mean by the edge cases. So we're on the road here. We're on a car journey and we're going on a trip. And everyone on this journey, on this road, is all going in the same direction. Everyone's getting onto this road and we're going on a journey, right? This is then what we call the highway. Okay, so the highway here is then sort of the main route that everyone's taking. And so when we're thinking about this here, the highway is then the sort of the main route that all your users are taking. But what about then when people need to go to the gas station, right? And I'm just going to like quickly draw this up here. When people go to the gas station, they typically come in here. Actually, I'll see if I can like draw this out. That would be pretty sweet. They come out. Let's say that this is the gas station here. We've drawn it, right? Gas station. People will come out from here and they will want to get back on the journey, right? So they're coming off the main road and they go to the gas station before they then return their journey and come back. Now, folks, what I'm trying to communicate here is that there are sometimes occasions where your users will need specific things, right? Some users will not want to pay and they'll just want to do their sort of second route, but other people, you might want to push them down here. So this is the sort of the way that we handle the sometimes users, right? Users who don't need this every day, but we're helping support those people who occasionally need this. Now, imagine if we made every single user use the gas station to go on the highway. Well, it's just be useless because not everyone needs to do that. And so I'm just trying to communicate here, folks, of how we can support then the gas station, right? The secondary tasks and the goals that users have. Maybe only 20% of your users actually need this when they're driving, or even less. And so this is how we support them without infecting the main route and not making everyone have to go through that part of the app. Thirdly, then we have what we call the emergency stop. And the emergency stop then is when we're actually having to stop the car, maybe to take a phone call. And so the emergency stop is actually this like really specific thing that we do rarely. Okay, maybe like only once ever will a user have to do this. And I guess all I'm trying to say here, folks, is that we need to support it, but we shouldn't make everyone do an emergency stop on the highway. And that's kind of a simple way that we can handle priorities and that we can kind of think about our main routes that we take everyone on whilst also supporting the others. Now, there's plenty more to cover there. But what I'm going to say is I'd rather answer a few questions and then wrap up this teaching session with just some announcements and other cool news that we have. So let's just go on to just quickly answer some questions here. I think we had a question about affinity mapping and personas. What I'm going to quickly say is affinity mapping is just a simple way that we can identify themes from our research. What a persona or an empathy map is we take all of those themes and then we put them into then a format that helps us understand our users. So a persona and an empathy map are in the similar sort of category of just simply communicating what the user is doing. A persona typically is like more sort of narrative and often like a little bit more lightweight. And so I know a lot of people prefer empathy maps because in the design, it just has a lot more information in it. Okay, and then we also have we have Ahmed, you're asking then user scenario mapping versus journey mapping. To be honest, in some ways they're the same things, right? These formats are super flexible. I think user scenario mapping is more to do at the design stage. From what I understand user scenario mapping to be, the design stage is when we're actually trying to go and build the flow. We're trying to build a set of designs for these to go on, and we're handling that. So that's, I think, more later on. A journey map is just trying to communicate how the user feels along their journey. Whereas user scenario mapping, I think, could be, from what I understand, is more targeted at building out separate journeys and thinking more about how we design them up. So that's later on in the design process. Any more questions in terms of journey maps? And if not, we can jump back into the session and we can also then finish up the slides. What I would just say, folks, is don't believe the lie that doing UX overnight in a couple of videos will make you an expert. It's unfortunately not true. What I'm trying to do here is at least show you areas that you can explore, that you can learn, and you can build up the experience. You're not going to learn this stuff overnight. And so that's where mentors are so helpful. And also, another thing that I'm really excited to share is then the practical UX masterclass that we're building. So we don't have time to cover everything in this video. And to be honest, we've only covered like a few tiny bits. But what about then if you want to learn more? And so me and Afif and the ProApp design community, we're working together to build a masterclass, which is a long sort of 5-6 hour video training program, which is just for premium subscribers. And so I just want to kind of just explore this a little bit and explain how in the UX research process, we have the discovery, which we learned last time. And then today we're talking about definition, which helps us fix that one thing, right? And I'm glad you're getting excited for this because this video course is going to teach everything around the whole UX process. And it's going to equip us with loads of practical tips as we zoom into each one. So the definition stage is where we focus primarily on what do the users need and what's the one big feature we need to improve on, which in this case, in the journey map, that helped us prioritize to focus on, wow, we learned that people don't subscribe because the app has too many pop-ups. And we also learned that the downloads are too big. And so that helps us identify the minimal viable product. And this then gives us almost like a checklist so that we can go in and we can actually go and design, which is hopefully what people get creative and excited about. And it's only when we understand all the research that we can then go into the design and we can do this iterative process of then delivering that. So the course that I'm building, and I'm in the process of writing it all up, and there's a special invitation just after this slide. What's really cool is that we're going to be covering all of this from if you want to specialize in UX research and you want to get that experience of building your portfolio in your case studies based around looking at user needs and all your research methods. You've got so many questions that you guys are having. And so the UX research side of the course will cover all of that. But then the other side, if you're more creative, you like getting, problem solving and getting into Figma and testing with users, we also then cover the product design stage. And so you've got this sort of different ends of the spectrum. What I've wanted to do is then break the course into 3 sections, right? And so this is a full course that you'll get as part of the premium subscription. So I recommend you guys sign up, and hopefully we're going to be launching that really soon. And yeah, thanks Afif for that. But what we're going to do is we're going to then break this into 3 big chapters. Strategy. Now, strategy is so important when you work in an organization to build the right things and to work with your team. So we're going to learn about different ways in which we can manage our stakeholders. We can create reports. We can understand what are the sort of deliverables. Next, we're going to do execution, which is how do we take the research and how do we bring it into the design? what's that sort of process that we have? And then finally, how do we make sure that what we have is good? And how do we make it better? How do we improve? So folks, that is the masterclass that I'm really excited to be delivering to you. It's kind of like the workshops that I'm running here are just small little tasters. And there's so much more to learn. And so the Practical UX Masterclass will be a video course that I'm creative. Now, just one thing. So you guys, I don't know how many people are on the call here, but I just want to get something really exciting. Is that for me to go and record 5 hours worth of videos is going to take a very long time. And so what's something that me and Afif have been working on is then creating, I guess, the exclusive VIP program. Now, a lot of you folks are wanting to learn UX, wanting to learn about design so that you can get better jobs, so that you can enter this industry and that you can get more experience, you can build your portfolio. Often what is a lot of problems in things like boot camps and sort of other sort of courses that are really expensive is the fact that there's just not a lot of support. And so one thing that I'm super passionate about is creating this program that is helping people to get mentoring, that is helping you also, Gracia, to get behind the scenes access to the masterclass. So rather than waiting for all of the videos to be created, what I want to do is actually host live recording sessions, right? So I'm going to be in my studio here. I'm going to have my friend recording me as I teach the session. We're going to hit record, but I'm also going to have a special sort of behind the scenes community that is able to watch that live and actually take part in it early before it comes out. And so what I'd invite you all to have a think about is joining this community, because there's also going to be a live I'll just show you some examples. So I've already started writing all the chapters about how to so there's 8 chapters of like how to go and run research and how to do design. And also, I'm going to be creating a live community where we're going to be having Ask Me Anything sessions. We're going to have masterclass watch togethers. There's going to be more of like an onboarding process where I'd like to get you involved, where we can do portfolio sessions. And there's going to be different channels for research, design, UI. And you're going to be part of a community of people learning together. So that's what I'm getting excited about. And what I would just say is that if you sign up, I'm gonna send this offer out because people will want to watch on YouTube, but I'd love to maybe say for the 30th of July, if you can register for the premium ProApp side, which is in the link that Afif just shared, join.uxenergy, just message me afterwards and say, hey Jonah, I've signed up, please give me access to this course. We'll give you a month free from this VIP program. And so I'm still setting that up. We're still, I've got like a team of 5 people that are all working together with me to build this platform. And so what I would just really get excited about is this big masterclass that is coming probably towards the end of the year. But hopefully starting July, we're going to be running this sort of as I record, as I go. We're going to be having more practical sessions like today, but ones that are just for you. And so this is kind of the end of the session. And I just want to kind of give you then a bit of information about how to get in touch with me, how to tweet me, how to find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, I would love to be in touch. So let me just paste this into the chat as well. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And what I'd love to do is actually share with you an invite so that you can join the VIP program as well. I'll just paste that in here. And so the VIP program, I'm still to try and build it up, but just to kind of register interest in that, you can click the link here that I'm just sending out. Boom. VIP.uxenergy. This is just a sign up form. But what I'd really recommend you do that before you do that is you go and go into the Pro Design app and sign up for Premium, and it'll be really awesome to see you there. I'm really passionate about helping people learn and about helping people understand the world of UX in a practical way. And so, we have a few workshops that's up and running, but I'd really recommend that you get sneak peek access to the masterclass, and that we also get set up on the ProApp platform, which is super awesome. And it's a great resource. And I'm glad that we've connected already. Okay, that's me. I've got no more sessions. We've gone for nearly 2 hours here. But I just wanted to communicate this to you guys, that there's lots more resources, and hopefully we can go from there, folks. Thank you, Afif, for hosting. And folks, I just want to say thank you so much. It was lovely to meet you all, and hopefully see you on LinkedIn or through the ProApp design community, or through the VIP program. Okay, thanks so much. Cheers.
Thanks a lot, Jonah, for the amazing session. And I think everyone got to hear what they were waiting for, the surprise that they had, that you had for them. So thanks a lot for that. Yes, so as Jonah rightly mentioned, we are curating a true blue masterclass for everyone who would like to learn in depth about UX in a practical manner. And Jonah has been really kind and really passionate to do that along with us. So, I mean, from personal experience, I would like to say this to everyone, that Jonah has been working really hard on this. He has been really concerned about what you want, what the students would need from you. And I think that it's going to have some great value for all of you here. So yeah, that's more or less about it. If you have any other questions, you can connect with Jonah on LinkedIn, and you can definitely reach out to us, and we will be glad to clear those out for you. So thanks a lot, everyone, for joining in. Thanks a lot, Jonah, for this amazing session. And
Yeah, my pleasure.
I hope to see everyone soon.
Thanks, folks. I think just Afif, just as well, I'll just give you like a bunch of links that you can maybe send out to all the attenders today, just so that they can get access, as well as the free template for the journey map. Hopefully that's going to be useful for you guys. So I'll share that with you all.
Sounds perfect.
All right, folks. Sounds good.
Okay, then.
Awesome.
Have a great weekend ahead.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Nice to meet you, everyone. Have a good one. Cheers. Bye.